Hello, Angela. Kulsam, have you started?
Good morning, Principal. Yes, we I've opened up the doors and we have started the session.
Okay, great stuff. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, our principal. Good morning, welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, our speakers, my fellow colleagues, our principal, our senior managers, you are welcome and all protocol observed. Let us take a moment of silence to remember Nosicelo Mdebeni, who was a law student, killed and her body was stuffed in a suitcase. And also, ladies and gentlemen, let us also remember Miss Papita Jokoran, who was a public servant, and she was also gunned down outside her home. Let's take a moment of silence. Thank you so much, everyone. Our women's webinar and our theme today is Flying Past Gender Discrimination in the Workplace, ladies and gentlemen. And my name is Lihlogonolo Maila, and I'm your program director for this session. I'm currently employed in the National School of Government under the Chief Directorate Induction. And I'm currently responsible for managing induction program in the national and sectors. And without wasting more time, I'm gonna invite Dr. Izzy Malachi to introduce our speakers for the day. Thank you. Over to you, Sis Izzy.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Program Director Nolo. Thank you, Ms. Program Director Nolo. And a big thank you to the principal. It is quite a privilege for all of us to be here today. And Principal, thank you for ensuring that we have a commemoration of this special day. To each and every one of you attending today, a warm welcome from me, Dr. Izzy Malachi, from the National School of Government. All protocol observed. Every year in August, our country marks Women's Month as we pay tribute to the more than 20,000 women who marched to the Union Building on the 9th of August in 1956 in protest against the extension of the past laws for women. So fast forward to 2021, we are commemorating this important event differently. We are doing it through dialogues, we're doing it through discussions and webinars, as we cannot meet face-to-face due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So why are we here today? August is National Women's Month, a month we are called to remember and commemorate the struggles of women of 1956. This year is commemorated under the theme, the Year of Charlotte Manya Matseke, Realizing Women's Rights. In line with gender equality goals, the emphasis will be on elevating the voices of ordinary women like you and I across sectors of society under the banner of what women want. This should in turn provide further impetus to strategic interventions, which will ensure the radical transformation of gender relations and the political, social, and economic empowerment of women, including young women and those with disabilities. Although Women's Month is commemorated in August, this is but only the official time within which to commemorate and not where the work should begin and end. So actually, the work should happen throughout the year. Every day should be a day when we commemorate women. So in 2021, Women's Month initiatives seek to focus on women's effective equality, which has been exacerbated by the impact of COVID-19 on women and young women, including those with disabilities, aligned to the implementation of the Plan for Generation Equality. Among the key issues in this regard are equal access to the economy, equal access to pay for work of equal value, equal sharing of unpaid care and domestic work, an end to sexual harassment, including in the workplace, and all forms of violence against women and girls. Access to quality healthcare services that respond to women's needs, and equal participation in political life and decision-making in all areas of life. So the big question is, what has changed over the past 65 years? What are we doing as women in the workplace? What are we doing as an organization? What are we doing as a country? There is a cry out there about women. There are issues as women that we have to battle with on a daily basis. And these are issues such as inequality, sexism, bullying in the workplace, intimidation, gender discrimination, misogyny, unemployment, poverty, gender-based violence, and now lately, femicide, and the list goes on. So as the National School of Government, we thought it would be prudent for us to come together and discuss with other women as to how they had to fly past some of these issues to get to where they are in their careers. These women are from different sectors of society. We've got a representative from the private sector, from local government, academia, and from national government. So today in the House, we have Ms. Fatima Jakut, who is the CEO of Bravio Solutions. Also on the lineup, we have Ms. Bongi Mukaba, who is the Director, Events Management at the City of Johannesburg. Then we will also have Major Mandisa Mfeka, who is the pilot in the South African Air Force. Then followed by Dr. Atandile Masola, who is a lecturer, a writer, and a researcher from the University of Cape Town. So some of these women that I have mentioned, they are excelling in a male-dominated field. And today, they will be sharing and engaging with us on how they had to break various barriers to be where they are today, and the lessons that they have learned on their journey. So ladies and gentlemen, in the words of Maya Angelou, remember, each time a woman stands up for herself without knowing it possibly, without claiming it, she stands up for all women. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your support and thank you for being with us this morning. Sit back and enjoy the rest of the program. A luta continua. Thank you.
The doctor has spoken. Thank you so much, Dr. Easy. I'm going to introduce our speaker, Ms. Fatima Yakut. I'm just going to give you a short introduction. Fatima Yakut holds an MBA from University of Stellenbosch and is an alumni of Harvard Business School, where she completed the Executive Leadership Program. She's a qualified airline pilot and has extensive experience in the aviation industry for the past 18 years. She's also a qualified forensic toxicologist and narcotics specialist with a degree in chemistry. Fatima is the founder of Sakikamva Foundation, established in 2010 to develop and expose youth to the aerospace industry. The foundation has interacted with more than 130,000 youth and children in South Africa. She also developed and launched the Science, Technology, Robotics, Engineering, Aerospace, and Mathematics stream, a laboratory in 2015, an interactive science center focused on STEM, education with aerospace and aviation industries as the main themes. Fatima is currently CEO of Bravio Solutions and partner at Victoria Capital. Her vision is to shift the skills curve of 1 million people in the 21st century workplace. I'm gonna allow Ms. Fatima Yakut to give us some few words. Thank you, Ms. Fatima.
Good morning to you and welcome to all the special guests. And I'm really honored to be able to address you here today. I hope that you can all hear me loud and clear. I'm just checking if I am not on mute. That's always the case. If you allow me to share my screen, and I will present a short talk on flying past the gender discrimination in the workplace and about my story through the years, my career. And so we all have a story to tell, and each of our stories, I heard someone said to me one day, if you hear somebody else's story, you will gladly take yours back and own your story. So each And every one of us should own our story and be proud to tell our stories. So many times we as women think that we cannot, we're too ashamed to say we struggled or I am not coping. But sharing our stories and allowing other women to hear these stories, we can only grow from that. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about where I come from and what my dreams were. I'm a big dreamer. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to be a supermodel. I wanted to be everything under the sun. But growing up in the years of apartheid, being a pilot was not a realistic career for a Muslim woman. So I decided I'll become a doctor. And maybe one day I can get into my own airplane and fly from buy my own airplane and fly from the tip of Africa to the top of Africa in my little Cessna, and I will be able to heal the world. So I did not get into medical school. That was a very sad story. Did not get into medical school, and I eventually studied chemistry, and I became I finished my degree in chemistry, and I joined the first forensic team, and that was the South African National Health Services forensic team, and I became a toxicologist or a toxicology forensic specialist, and yes, I saw things that I've never seen before. I was working with, if I think back, it was clearly gross to analyze post-mortem tissue and do post-mortem tissue analysis. But there was a fire in me that I just needed a challenge greater than that. And then I joined the police force because they promised they'll give me a firearm, a gun, a 9mm parabellum. And I said, I'll join the police force and I'll get into these drugs and I'll analyze these drugs and do drug busts, and which was very exciting. And that is where the catalyst for me started in aviation. I shared an office with a gentleman, and his name is Gerard. By the way, very few people, there were very few females in the forensic industry. I joined the South African police force in 1998, or around about there, and there were very few females in the forensic, and I didn't realize, and even people of color in the forensic industry. So having a gun and being a female, being a Muslim, coming from a very sheltered family, I did a drug bust at the police station, at the airport. How can I say police station? At the airport one day. And there I stood in front of a 747, a KLM 747, and just my dreams came flooding, and the airplane came calling and said, Fatima, you must come and fly me. And I turned to Gerard and I said to him, listen, Gerard, this airplane is calling me. I'm going to fly airplanes. I'm going to fly this airplane. And off I went. I didn't get in the first time, didn't get into the second time into a cadet pilot program, which was sponsored by SAA at the time. So I got into the program on the third try, because the competition is high. It's really 0.1% chance that you'll get in with all the applications that they received. Anyway, I packed my bag and off I went to Australia. This sheltered little girl, I would say I was a little girl. I grew up in a very conservative environment, and going and flying. It doesn't mean that my parents never encouraged me. I think just the environment and the culture was as such, it was, a woman going overseas, and going to a Muslim girl going overseas, and she's going to fly airplanes, learn to fly airplanes. And there was my very first obstacle. My personal struggle was with my assertiveness and the lack I wasn't very assertive. So you can't fly an airplane and kind of, what is the engine's on fire, and okay, fine. You have to be assertive. You have to say the engine's on fire, I have control, and you go through your drills, and you are in control of a machine that's moving in various dimensions. It's not like a car, you just go forward or left or right, and just one thing at a time. You go up and down. When you're flying, you go sideways, you it's various dimensions that you are moving in at the same time. So a very big learning curve for me to get to know myself as a woman. But coming back to South Africa after 9/11, that was for me the biggest. The very first airline that I flew in said to me, you need to remove your scarf. And the question was, why do I need to remove the scarf? Passengers are uncomfortable with you flying the airplane. They're scared you're going to fly into a building. My joke would be, it's like, no, they taught me how to land the airplane. But I mean, that was the very first time, like, my eyes opened and said, there is something not right here. The world, or my current world, my current dream, in this sphere, there is a level of discomfort with who I am and what I represent. So that first airline, I went through a process with them, and they were quite accommodating with what my needs were as a Muslim woman, and the word spread very fast. Some people didn't like flying with me, and others loved flying, or some people didn't understand my culture. And then when I entered SAA, that is really when the things became. This is now 3 years later, coming into back to South Africa, and then things started, falling apart, if I said, on these long haul flights. By the way, the very first airplane that I've actually flew at SAA was a 747-400. That was that's the one that I stood 5 years before in front of. And that was for me really a highlight in my career as a pilot. And then, so things fell apart slowly but surely, man. It built up, and I didn't know what to do with regards to, I don't want to fly with you. Sitting on a 12-hour flight, I don't like you. Why are you wearing that thing on your head? And it was a process that I didn't know how to handle. So every 6 months, pilots actually go, and they every 6 months we go into the flight simulator, and we get our skills test. And if you fail that skills test, you'll get another chance. And if you fail that second chance, you are up for basically a disciplinary. Either you get fired or you get retrained. And if you do get retrained, you can only get retrained once in your whole airline career. So it was quite a lot of pressure. And then in 2008, I did this flight test. In April, I did this flight test, and I just couldn't fly airplanes because they told me they don't like me. My colleagues told me they didn't like me. They're not going to fly with me. Well, I'm going to fail my simulator test. They're going to basically wash me. And I thought, you know what, I couldn't fly. So I failed. I got another test. I failed the second time. And then I was up for review. I was sent to a psychologist to go and see what is wrong. Why is it that I can't suddenly fly? I was asked very politely to please resign from the airline. And somehow something needs to change. There's a reason why I'm in this position, the position that I currently am in. And I really thought that I wasn't going to make it, but I prayed about it. I spoke to my support system, spoke to my family about it, and this being a first generation pilot, there was very few people that could understand it. But from a spiritual level, there was a lot of support. Think about what you are doing, how you are doing, and what is the purpose in life. The questions that I had to ask myself, and I had to gather the strength from my spirituality. And then I realized we need to make a difference. If every woman is going to sit back and take this bullying, all this negative energy coming in, then who's going to survive and who's going to make that change? And then I said, okay, I'll do another training session, and if I do fail, then obviously I'm fired. And then I did the training session, and then I passed it, and I never had any problems after that, because it is then that I realized out of that experience is my biggest crucible, my biggest learning experience. I learned that we need to celebrate who we are as women, no matter how small no matter how small our challenges or perceived size of our challenges. We need to celebrate every day. If your child has their first teeth, you do celebrate that, but do you celebrate as a mother saying, but I woke up, I was staying up all night, making sure that the baby didn't have a fever, or when they were sick? Do you celebrate that really as a mother? Because it starts there. And with every adversity, there is opportunity, the opportunity for you to make that change, but the opportunity to learn who you are. And so one of my biggest things that I've learned is that, the perception that other people have of me, my colleagues had of me, was that of, you need to be, you are different. I don't like you. But who are you to think? I mean, at the time I was studying my MBA, and even that, it was like, why are you studying an MBA? You're a pilot, but I'm not a good enough pilot in their eyes. But it's a threat for them to study further, or to better yourself, or to empower yourself with knowledge. And comments like, do you want to be the next CEO of SA? It's unnecessary things. And how do we take that? We take that on board, but how do we change that? How do we let that bounce off our sphere, our bubble, that we not a bubble, but our sphere? How do we protect ourselves? And then I realized that I cannot change my apologies. I did switch off my phone. How do we change that? We cannot change the perception of what others think of you, or what they see you as. You can only influence it. And a colleague of mine who said to me, there's another person with a lappy on her head, what is she doing there? That person said to me, you know what, when you came in, I thought, what is happening to our flight deck? What is happening to our cockpit? The world is changing, what is she doing here? But then he got to know me, and he said, I got to know you, but I got to love you. And that for me was really, it was really an eye-opener to see that, your behavior can influence or how people perceive you. And we have the power. My last point is that we have the power to change it. We have the power to change. We have the power. I always say we are the university of the first university of our lab is the first university of a child. So if we can educate one child, we're educating a nation. So thank you, ladies. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening to this, my story, and creating this platform for me to share that. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Ms. Yakut. I'm definitely sure that if you were with us, face to face, we'll be clapping hands for you right now. You are truly an inspirational to a lot of young children out there, and even older people, believing in yourself. It's one of the things that you highlighted, and also indicating that even if people don't like you, you shouldn't give up on your dreams. And I mean, you've jumped from so many dreams, from being, you're a big dreamer, that's what you said. You dreamt of being everything, from a doctor, a police officer, to a pilot, maybe still, you know, going to tell us more, or maybe still going to achieve more. But nonetheless, thank you for breaking the barriers as a Muslim woman. And we are truly blessed, you know, to be having you in our platform. Thank you so much. And without wasting more time, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see on your screens, we have Q&A, we have chat, we have raised hands. At this particular moment, we cannot take anybody who raises their hand. If you have any question for Ms. Yakut, you're more than welcome to write it on the Q&A, and we'll have a moment or a session where we'll be taking your questions and she will be able to answer them. Without wasting more time, I would like to introduce our next speaker. Her name is Ms. Bongi Mugaba. As a Director, Events Management for the City of Johannesburg, Mr. Bongi Mugaba has been in the local government for the past 20 years, working in different areas, armed with a professional qualification in library and information services and an honors degree. She was responsible for merging all libraries in Johannesburg in 2000, when the 5 municipality administrations were merged into what is now the City of Joburg. She was also instrumental in ensuring a partnership between the City of Joburg and Carnegie Corporation of New York, which helped improve library services offered by the Johannesburg Public Library. As head of social development, which included libraries, sports, and recreation, she was responsible for the capital development projects in Orange Farm and Diepsloot. In her role as the Director Events Management, she was the city's coordinator for the Cricket Cup, working closely with Dr. Ali Bakha, who led the Cricket South Africa and was also part of the team that worked in the FIFA Soccer World Cup in 2010. Over the past 14 years, she has been involved in golf and organized one of the biggest international tournaments in the country, the Joburg Open, that is the Joburg Open, and later established the Joburg Ladies Open, and now found a home in Soweto Country Club. This is the only golf course in the country with 18 holes that is in township. Her passion has been her personal growth in a male-dominated environment, which landed her managing the Soweto Country Club over and above developing young women into leadership positions. Over to you, Ms. Bongi Mugaba. Thank you.
Good morning to everyone. As the program director said, I am Bongi Mugaba, working for the City of Joburg. Before I joined the city, during my university days, I was a student activist. And when I started working, husband and I had a conversation to say who goes for the 8 to 5 and who does politics. And I opted for the 8 to 5, and may his soul rest in peace, he opted for politics. But having said that, before I started working, my first interest was being a nurse, because I come from a background where both my parents were in the medical field. It was until I saw a man at the Tembisa Hospital who was burnt with acid, and just the sight of his face, I decided then, this is not my space. I then did library and information services in Natal and completed. But on completion, I decided libraries is seen as a woman-dominated space. And I was clear from day one, I am not going to stand behind the counter and issue books. I am going to manage libraries and make a difference in this particular space. It was then when I was appointed in in the Eastern Metropolitan Council then, which was located in Sandton. And when I went for this interview, what struck me was in the interview room, there were about 13, if not 15 people, and the majority of them were men. And I thought, is this institution male dominated? What is one up to? And what is one up against in the space? Because of the knowledge and the experience I had in the field of library and information services, I was clear that this male-dominated room is not going to intimidate me because I carry the knowledge, I carry the experience of what I've learned at university, and therefore I'm going to crack this interview. Fast forward, I was appointed, and in me being appointed, it meant having 5 other administrations where head of library services were still male, and we're all competing for this one post. Libraries were amalgamated. I had 4 white Afrikaner male reporting to me. And I'm stating this because from the era where I come from, you can't look at gender discrimination only without looking at the issue of racism that played its, that raises hand in the same environment. I remember in the process of merging, there were complications where people basically failed to deal with a brief. And in them failing to deal with a brief, instead of creating one organogram that would have covered the whole of Johannesburg, people were looking at individuals. And we had to put this thing together. And at the end, it created such tensions to a point where people started saying, she's young, she's Black, she's a Mukaba, why must she be leading libraries? And my argument was, yes, I'm young, but at some point I'm going to be your age, which is the age I'm at now. And I said to them, being born Black was not my choice, but I'm happy I was born Black. Being a Mukaba was choice, and being Xhosa, I had no choice. Now, it ended up where I said to people, there are 2 choices. It's either you accept me as the head of libraries, or you put your resignation on the table, irrespective of color, gender, or creed. Those wanted to leave, left. The ones that remained, remained, and we continued. And for me, it was a question of asserting myself to say, I am the leader here. I am a democratic manager where we would be able to engage with people and be inclusive. But to be discriminated because I'm a woman or I'm Black, that is not going to be acceptable. And that was my first experience in the space. We then moved, fast forward, changed departments, and we established, the city established the event management unit. In fact, let me rephrase and say, before the establishment of the event management unit, as part of the work we did in social development, during my university days, we had done research. And amongst the research things I had done was to look at the establishment of libraries in informal settlements. And by then, Diepsloot was one of the biggest informal settlements that had been established in Johannesburg, including Ivory Park. And this research was specifically done in Ivory Park. And when I started, it was then my interest to ensure that either in Ivory Park or Diepsloot, there is a library. And fortunately, we were able to get money first to establish the first library in Diepsloot. Whilst Diepsloot wanted a library, Orange Farm needed a swimming pool. And for me, those are things that set me apart from everybody, because having grown up in a township, I had a full appreciation and understanding of the frustrations that people in my communities were dealing with. That's why it was easy for me to motivate that these 2 facilities be established in these 2 informal settlements. And for me, it was Joburg leading from the front, but the excitement was that I was leading that process as a woman for Johannesburg and basically setting myself apart from what had been done previously. We then established the city had established the event management unit, and we established the first joint operation committee, which looks after all events within the city of Johannesburg. And we're not only looking after events that are hosted by the city, but external events as well. This came after the tragedy at Ellis Park, where the city was told in now uncertain terms that if there would be any other tragedy and the city not having systems in place to avert such, people would be charged. So setting this committee, which is still running today and has ensured the safety of all events hosted in the city, has been a huge accolade as well. Come 2003, Cricket World Cup started. We worked and ensured that City of Johannesburg hosts the opening and the closing ceremonies. But one was moving into a space that was male dominated. And the exciting part was that we're then, as women, able to bring a sport that was predominantly white, where we're allowed to set up a cricket pitch within the council chamber, where councillors were first exposed to how cricket is run, how rules are done, and the conclusion thereof was that a number of councillors were saying this has allowed them to be able to support their children because they couldn't, because of their lack of understanding of the game. We then move forward to the World Cup in 2010. That started with the bid books. I led the process of sourcing information that was later turned into the Joburg bid book. That basically detailed all the information that was required from the infrastructure that the city had, all the facilities that were available, what plans Johannesburg had put forward. A strange thing then happened. And this is then alluded to sexism and discrimination, in the sense that having put this document together, when the post of the executive director, World Cup 2010 was advertised, submitted my application, guess what? I was not even shortlisted. A person who was not even part of this process was then given the job. My consolation was that, one, she's a woman, but the annoyance of being marginalized because there was a particular agenda that the city needed to address. And it needs to be understood that institutions like local government, you find a situation where the city manager is a man, the mayor is a man, there's issues within the administration, and there's particular people that need to be managed and attended to. And I lost out. And I thought to myself, I know myself, I specialize in events. I might not lead the process of running the World Cup, but I am going to be involved. By then, I had already started playing golf, one. I had already started organizing golf events within the city. And that's when a partnership was established with an external company where the first Joburg Open was hosted. And I thought, I love new challenges. I can't handle routine. I've moved from libraries. I've gone beyond the World Cup. Here's a new attraction. Another sport that is male dominated. And I went in boots and all. And this year, if the city approves, we would be hosting the Joburg Open for year 14. And this is a tournament that has positioned the city of Joburg positively, globally. And in that process, if one looks at the board that is managing the South African PGA Tour, commonly known as the Sunshine Tour, it is a male-dominated board. And for a number of years, I've raised my hands to say, I want to break the ceiling. I want to serve in this board. And guess what? The reaction was that, no, go serve in the women's tournament, grow the tournament, you know, the section is still young and whatever. And I have not given up because I know myself, ultimately, I will be the first woman to serve in the Sunshine Tour board. It cannot continue being a boys' club forever because there are women who are capable, there are women with passion who are running this. Now, at the moment, I am the only woman who is a golf promoter in terms of tournament in the country. Now, it just can't be Bongi Mukaba alone. And I have taken it upon myself to say, I will develop a number of young women. The young women that work with me in my office, they know as part of their induction, we have charts with golf course layouts and everybody has to go through that drill so that we can increase, one, the number of women playing golf, but two, we can increase the number of women leading in golf. And because of the passion I have for this particular sport, that's why I ended up managing the Soweto Country Club. Soweto Country Club, like the program director said, it is the only 18-hole golf course located in a township. And the 18-hole is key because Davidton has a golf course, it's got 9 holes. Umlazi used to have a golf course and it used to be a 9-hole. I'm not sure if that one is still operational. But to manage a fully fledged facility where tournaments are hosted, for me is a big plus because we are making inroads in these areas that are so male dominated. But what has set me apart from everyone? I've always said to myself, I'm a leader. I think strategically. I am brave. I can multitask. I can make strategic decisions, and I trust my judgment. Can this be done? Yes, it can be done. We can all make our hands dirty. And what drives me? Being different drives me because it sets me apart from everyone else. Leading from the front. My family always say, I love attention. Yes, I do. Because in that attention level, I am then able to set myself apart from everyone. Developing young women. There are a number of young women that I have trained in event management that today are running their own companies. There are men I have taught how to put their event presentations together, whether they're submitting bids or they're presenting for events they're organizing, that I've taught. And with the history that I've developed over the years, with people thinking, working for government or local government, you're dealing with houses and parks and water and electricity. No, there are avenues that we've created. I always say, we work long hours. If my husband was alive, I always say to my team, I'm sure that he would have kicked me from, because for the better part of the time, we're in office doing long hours. But that is what makes the difference when you are able to go in, boots and all, make your hands dirty, but also developing other people in the process. It is possible. It can be done, because at the end of everything, if you have a father, you carry his surname. You get married, you carry your husband's surname. But what is important is that of the two surnames you ultimately choose to use, because ultimately I left my father's surname for my husband's surname, who passed on in the process. And I have carried the Mukaba name through the work that I have done. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is doable, it is possible, it can be done, as long as you set your mind at it and you are clear that we are leading people into the correct direction. I just want to make a last example. I was moved from the city of Joburg for about a period of 6 months. And I worked in Tshwane, and we're preparing for the UCLGA conference. And it was a tedious process where tough decisions had to be made. The first decision I made was to ask the then mayor of Tshwane to say, I need to set up an ops room. And the only place that is suitable is the boardroom. And little did I know that that area I had identified was the area that was used for mayoral committee. Fast forward, mayoral committee had to be relocated somewhere, and Father Mkajwa gave us this room. But that's not the issue. And the point here is 1, bravery, 2, standing your ground, 3, working with leaders that are able to take advice and guidance from people who are considered juniors. But the cherry on top was when the main speaker had not left their country, and bold decisions, because there was some diplomatic issue that had arisen, and a decision had to be made. 3 city managers who were male, 3 mayors who were male, managing the metros in Gauteng at the time. I took a decision to say, with this diplomatic crisis that we're managing with foreign affairs, which is there for now, I'm not going to raise it with any of these gentlemen, lest I create more panic. I'm going to manage it with the guys who we're working with from National. And came the time when this said leader was supposed to be fetched from the airport. Guess what? Motorbikes, bells and whistles, Tshwane MPD, we sent them to Waterkloof, knowing very well the leader had not left their country. They sat at the airport and they kept on phoning, why is this person not landing? We said, no, he's dealing with whatever and whatever and whatever. Fast forward to this day, I have never declared. This is the second declaration I'm making to say, I sent leaders to wait at the airport, knowing very well the person that they were fetching was still in his country because the diplomatic issue was not resolved. That is bravery. That is trusting your judgment. And that is being strategic to say you can't create a bigger crisis when there's already a crisis. Fast forward, leader arrived midnight, conference took place, 450 guests that were all arranged in a space of 6 months. And for me, those are things that when you work in a male-dominated environment, you must then be able to put yourself forward and say, these things can be done. And I am tasked with the responsibility of doing them. And I will do them to the best of my ability because I trust the strengths that I have. So, ladies and gentlemen, with those words, please allow me to end at this point. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ms. Mugaba. Oh, yeah, we are truly learning a lot from inspirational women like you. And honestly, ladies and gentlemen, we are so blessed to be surrounded by so much wisdom. And also taking cognizance that in all the careers or in all the projects that she was involved with, most of them were dominated by males. And she had to make a difference and become a shining star in all of those people. And also she highlighted that she's a leader. She believes she's a leader. She thinks strategically. She's multitasking, and she trusts her judgment. That's how confident she is that if you present anything, she will make sure that she delivers. Ladies and gentlemen, she also mentioned that she's currently the only golf promoter in the country, a woman. So it shows that there's a gap in that sports career. So women, let us get hold of Ms. Bongi if we are interested in such initiatives, and she will give us a clear direction on how to go about. Thank you so much, Ms. Mugaba. We are truly happy and delighted that we are spending this moment with you. And without wasting more time, ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to take this moment to welcome our honorable ambassadors and heads of departments. And if you just joined now also, you are welcome. And you haven't missed much. We've already had Ms. Yakut, and we just had Ms. Bongi now. And I'm going to send some few questions for Ms. Yakut and Ms. Bongi. So I will start with Ms. Yakut. There's a question which says, how did you manage to change from one career to the other, looking at money, funds, time, and emotions? And how important is support system or structure in a career? I have 4 questions, so I'll give you this opportunity to answer those 2 ones, then we'll continue with the other 2, Ms. Yakut. The first one, how did you manage to change from one career to the other, looking at money, funding, time, and emotions? The second one, how important is the support system or structure in a career? Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. I am looking at the first questions. How do you navigate your life through change? There must be a level of taking risk. So if you are secure in the current career that you are in, you have to take that risk or that step outside your comfort zone in order to be able to move forward. And I think that's with anything, trying something new and something different, and going through that change. You have to kind of coach yourself through that change. Where the financial support comes from, I've been very fortunate to my very first, my very first, let me go back where I started. I started working from a very young age. I think people think today's day and age is slave labor, but my family, my parents always had their own business, and I always used to help. And that gave me a platform to think about the world differently and have that drive to work towards something. But I must say that I've been very fortunate to be able to have the scholarship to become a pilot. Without that, I would not have become a pilot. I can tell you, I wouldn't be able to afford it. I might have made a way, but I wouldn't have done it at the time. And then, so financial support is key to what but we shouldn't let that prevent us from achieving what we want to achieve. And that is why I also started the foundation, knowing and understanding what our youth is struggling, what the next generation is struggling, and how to make pave a pathway for them, to support them financially. And we can't help everyone, but the few people that we can help, we do hope that it makes a difference in their life. And then with regards to, can you just repeat that second question? Oh, the support structure. Support structure is 100% important. You have to have the right support structure. And if it's not there, it's not naturally there, you're going to have to put it in place. And like everything in life, if you need something, you have to make sure that you make that change, because we have the power to make that change and to be able to put that structures in there. Nobody, if you have a dream, nobody's going to hand anything to you on a silver platter. Just realize that now from day zero. Nobody's going to hand it to you. So you have that power to make that dream a reality.
All right, thank you. The third one, what would you say to someone who is looking at making a career change? And the fourth one, how do you balance work, life, family, and studies?
Okay, so my advice to someone who wants to make a career change, I would say my first thing is go for it, believe in yourself, and every single failure as it's deemed, there is success in it. Because I always say, when we try to get funding for projects at the foundation, I would say, I'm waiting for, I know I'm going to get 99 no's, but I only need 1 yes. So every time I get a no, we're closer to the yes. So go for it. Don't hesitate. Believe in yourself. It is yours. Own it. It's your dream. Own it. And the last question again. Thank you.
Okay, the last question, how do you balance work, life, family, studies?
Oh, I am not, we're not all perfect. So I'm going to tell you that I'm not the person who balances all those, the family life, the work life. I'm really terrible at it. It's actually my weakness, but I'm a compulsive worker. I love working. I love giving. I love working with a community. I love my family. But I would say I lean more towards my work-life balance is very poor. It's imbalanced. But I would say make time to those people who like become conscious of your time, because your time is your responsibility, right? So try to balance that. Try to choose the things that are important to you. You can't be hiking or skiing or whatever you love doing all the time. You have to find that fine balance. But the how, I'm still finding out. Sorry, I think.
Thank you. Thank you. And it shows that you can excel in everything, but you must just prioritize. You must just prioritize what would work for you at that moment. Have time for family, and also have time for your work, and make sure that all of them, there's balance somewhere, somehow. You have to create one. Thank you so much, Ms. Yagut. I think these are all the, do we still have more questions? Okay, I'll come back to you if there's another question, Ms. Yagut. All right, thank you so much. I don't think we have any more questions. If some people are having very pressing questions, they can still send them through, then we'll email it to you later and find a way to reconnect with everybody. Thank you. I have another question for Ms. Bongi. Ms. Bongi, are you still here?
I'm here, madam.
All right, okay. The question is, how do you assert yourself as a woman in a male-dominated environment? Then I will ask the other two questions. Let's keep it that way. How do you assert yourself as a woman in a male-dominated environment?
The first point is just being yourself. You can't change who you are because you work in a male-dominated environment. But at the same time, you need to know what you're doing. You need to be very assertive, and you need to develop the thickest skin ever, because there would be instances where, for argument's sake, if some men can win a debate, and then they turn around and tell you we are being emotional on a particular issue. I have gone through that myself. But when you know your story, you know your work, you know you can make your hands dirty, you will be able to work in any environment, being a male-dominated environment, being a situation where there's discrimination of any nature, you will be able to succeed. Thank you. Is there any other question, or we're done with questions now?
Yes, there's another one which says, as women, how can we assist other women to climb the ladder as we go up? And also, before you answer that, Ms. Bongi asked, Ms. Yakut has other engagements, and she will be leaving us soon. So if somewhere, somehow she exits the platform, we are noting that you can continue with your current engagements. Thank you. The
Thank you,
question
ma'am.
again. All right, thank you.
Apologies. Will be leaving soon. I see there are two questions in the Q&A that I'm just cutting
Yes.
out, and as soon as that I'll be leaving. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Ms. Bongi, sorry about that. As women, how can we assist other women to climb the ladder as we go up? And also other questions are also in the chat box. So maybe when we introduce another speaker, you can just answer them quickly for us. Thank you. As women, how can we assist other women to climb the ladder as we go up?
Thank you very much. I think the first point of call is that as leaders within our work environment, we then need to start with the teams that we are leading. In my work environment, my team members know titles mean nothing. If I can get my hands dirty, so can the next person. I've taken my own administrator to meetings where I was needed to meet with the city manager. We have interns that we've thrown in the deep end for them to run and manage projects, and us walking side by side with them. Because if they don't learn from physical experience, at what point are they going to learn? I've sent my teams to senior management meetings where I would not have been able to attend. And I would say to them, you go in that meeting as yourself, but you speaking on my behalf. So you go to that meeting, you say whatever Bungi Mugaba would have said. And that is how people learn, because if you don't give them practical experience, it then takes longer when it's just the theory only. But a concerted effort I have made to make sure that when I employ women, and I go for the younger generation because they have a longer future. It is only in the past 2 years that I've worked for the city where I've consciously started appointing men because we're forced to meet with EE quotas and standards. But that is how you uplift other women, get them into the space, get them involved, make them know what you know, share the experience with them, because tomorrow we will be retiring. They would then have to hold the fort and continue burning this candle. Thank you. I will check the chat box and respond to whatever questions there are. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gaba. We are not retiring, we are coming. I'm going to introduce our speaker, Ms. Major Mandisa Nfeka, is a pilot in the South African Air Force. She flies the Hawk MK120 leading fighter trainer developed by British Aerospace. In 2018, she made history by becoming the first Black female pilot to qualify as a Hawk commander on the jet. In 2008, she joined the South African Air Force, received her wings in 2011, and then embarked on her journey towards becoming a combat pilot. Major Mfeka spent the early years of her childhood in Nduzuma in KwaZulu-Natal. Thereafter, her parents moved to Malvern in Queensburg, also in KZN, with the hopes of providing an environment that would encourage a strong academic foundation, which they hope would lead to a successful career. Mandisa matriculated in 2007 from Queensburg Girls High with academic honors and was further awarded the Sportswoman of the Year trophy. The Major is all-rounder who believes that the passion for academics and the love for the sports file are now mutually exclusive. She vehemently advocates for the development of the youth and reaches out to them through her financial literacy and personal platform, Wingspanner, in order to cultivate a growth mindset and the need for personal development. Over to you, Major Mandisa Mfeka. Thank you.
Good day, hello. Oh, okay, wonderful. Apologies, my laptop decided to die and I had a presentation prepared, but unfortunately I'm now on my cell phone. So I will just have to read the transcripts of the Word document. Thank you very much for the honor of being here and also for sharing your stories. There are some really, really powerful stories that I relate to. Especially Ms. Fatima, when she spoke about the amount of pressure that one is subjected to in the aviation field, I could really resonate with that and I can still feel it. And I think in any space really where you're either a pioneer or you're somebody who is entering this male-dominated environment, you feel the pressure. You feel the pressure to perform. You feel the pressure to not only make the grade, but to make your presence felt. So I could really relate with both of the speakers, Ms. Bongi and Ms. Yakut. Thank you very much for sharing that. So the theme here is the flying past gender discrimination in the workplace. I'm a firm believer that that what you give your attention to, you manifest. You give power to thoughts, and sometimes they come back as things. Sometimes they come back as things that we don't want because of what we've programmed into our subconscious, and sometimes they come back as things that we do like, which we have manifested through our dreams. So it's one of the greatest power that we possess as women. And it is also, unfortunately, it can be a vice because you have the power to create positivity in your spaces. You have power to create a success, with thought, determination, and following it up with hard work. But also, you have the power to, make your environment a little bit uncomfortable by the negative programming that you might allow to manifest in the background of your mind. Which sometimes is seen as people in power who may, suffer from imposter syndrome. So it's one of two ways. It's an energy that we can tap into, it's a frequency, And I love the positive aspects of it, in the words of Paulo Coelho, in the book The Alchemist, which is my favorite book. And it's that when you want something, when you want something, the universe conspires to help you achieve it. So put your determination into your thoughts into things, and with ambition and hard work, it can actually manifest. Can I just confirm, I cannot see myself, but can everyone see me? Is the camera facing the right way?
No, we can't see you.
You see it? Apologies, I really had to do a quick switch around to my phone, which is what. Oh dear. There we go.
Yes, we can see you now.
Apologies. Okay. Yes, I had to also rush away from work to attend this meeting. So thank you very much for having me. I think throughout history, we have celebrated women who have taken great strides in an attempt to level out the playing field. Marie Curie is one who was a scientist. Winnie Madikizela Mandela, Charlotte Manyamatleke, Amelia Flockhart. They're all trailblazers with a pioneering spirit who dare to walk into boardrooms, who dare to get up on podiums, adorn the stage, or to dare pick up a megaphone and speak out and advocate for women's rights. So I think that in the spirit of pioneering and bringing women up, I think this is a great initiative. And also thank you for allowing me this platform. As I have been introduced, I consider myself just a young girl that grew up with the desire to fly. I was somebody who was passionate about aviation, but didn't realize that this path was open to me until, by serendipity, by happenstance, I came across an article by the South African Air Force recruiting pilots in the South African Air Force. And at the tender age of 16 years old, that was when the dream started to present itself as a reality. Then again, as I mentioned earlier, following it up with hard work, determination, the universe aligned for me and helped to conspire to achieve this dream. Sorry, my wings are banking. We want them straight. Something that we're really proud of. So I don't know if you know, but since when I was a young girl, I'd often step into spaces that were traditionally not made for women. At the age of 5 years old, I used to follow my father around to the soccer field, and I would insist that they allow me to play. Obviously, now it's physiologically impossible for me to have a good match with my dad's friends because they were taller, they were bigger, they were built. But in my mind, that was not something that was impossible. I wanted to be like my father, who was a good soccer player, and I would follow him to soccer play and insist when he wanted to leave me with my mom that I would go with him. I didn't want to stay at home and do the traditional female things. So what I'm trying to highlight here is that the mindset of going into perceived male-dominated spaces begins with the person's heart, with wanting to see yourself succeed there, not because that you're a female, but of what the environment offers you. What I wanted to do at that age, I wanted to be a soccer player. I did not see the obstacles of men being taller than me or myself being smaller and shorter. All I knew is that I wanted to be able to kick the ball like my dad. So the mindset that we can take from that is when we come into these environments, we have the capacity to learn how to work in the environment, but you need to back it up with that unwavering self-belief that there isn't a difference between you physiologically, emotionally, or intellectually from your counterparts who are male people. So that is one way that we can definitely navigate this space. So I've had the honor of shining the light that has brought a change about in our industry. I think we have a lot of female pilots, and they are pioneering in this space. They are making it a little bit more accessible to young ones. They're by us being in these spaces and being seen, we're making it, we're cementing the dream. We're showing them the representativity of something that we may not have had. I mean, that young 5-year-old girl who used to go to the airports and watch the airplanes fly, if she had seen an image of Miss Yakut, for instance, who is an airline pilot, I'm sure then already at that age of 5 years old, she would have realized that it is possible for women to enter aviation, to succeed, and not only just succeed, but to excel and to, you know, encourage and inspire others. So yes, it wasn't my doing, but it was the mere fact that I stepped into an ecosystem that was traditionally seen as male or not for women. So I think the subject of gender in my path, for instance, has not been something that I concentrated on. I didn't concentrate mostly on the fact that I am a female. In high school, I played sports. I went to an all-girls school. So we saw women succeeding, excelling. We saw women debating. We saw women standing up and being seen and being heard. Yeah, being seen, being heard, but taking up space more than anything. I think by the upbringing of our high school, that cemented that core of women are made to dominate spaces, are made to win competitions in the maths Olympiads or science fairs and that sort of thing. And by ingraining that mindset in the young girl that was the teenage me, it meant that when I came into an environment where I didn't see other people who looked like me, I wouldn't need to look around for affirmation about what I came to bring in this space. So as a result of that, when we met obstacles where if somebody sees you, they're not seeing, you know, they're not really giving you a clean slate. Even though we would like it, when we meet somebody, they say that they're giving us a clean slate, but it's not really a clean slate. That slate is actually conditioned by other experiences of what they perceive you to be. So you think you're presenting something new to them, but on some level, there is a conditioning about what a Mandisa from KwaZulu-Natal would look like. Before you've had your opportunity to speak up and show what your capacity is, there are obstacles and barriers that have been put or programmed into that person's mind that you have to overcome. So you're working twice as hard just to meet the same to meet the same level of acceptance in an environment. This is indeed a female challenge, which actually means that we have to be more resilient in our fields to prove ourselves. If you do work, you have to, you know, present a solution to a problem that maybe your male counterparts didn't have to go through, or an obstacle that you have to show that you're not only strong, you have to break that perception of girls are not traditionally known to run fast, or girls are not traditionally known to pick up heavy things, girls are not traditionally known to be maths whizzes, or whatever it may be that that person has in their heart or in the back of their subconscious. You have to overcome, fight that perception first, and then allow them to meet you. So I think as women in spaces like this, it is very, very challenging. And like Ms. Yakut said, the pressure is insurmountable. It's really not like the same what our male counterparts may be. And also the exposure into this environment. Some people didn't have the privilege of being, of learning about the environment, of learning about the space. So when you get there, you may find that there is jargon that you're not quite familiar with, which may count against you, not because of your ability, but because of where you came from or what you were exposed to as a child. So this is indeed a challenge that one has to navigate. And the way that we navigate this is by being good at what you say you are, by presenting yourself authentically. And I love that Ms. Mongi said that. Presenting yourself authentically is your highest or your superpower. There is no other person of your same skill, of your same talents, of your same vocabulary, vocation, of the same vocation that you come from, that has to offer what you're bringing. So as women, I think we can definitely lean on that aspect when we're navigating our spaces, when we're being seen, and not also shying away from highlighting our strengths. I think one of the challenges that we have sometimes as being brought up as girls is that we have to be modest, we have to be coy, and sometimes in our modesty we can downplay those strengths and those skills that we're actually so good at. So we can encourage women from different and various backgrounds to shine the light on their strengths, their loudness, their brashness, but in a good way, not in a way that it brings about destruction, but to dare to be seen in excelling in your field of work. So yeah, I'm just going to retell a little bit. I completed my matric in 2007, and this is just a small story that I thought I'd share. I attended selections that were held in Pretoria over 2 weeks, and that was the first time in my life that I came into an environment that was predominantly male. I had completed my schooling in an all-girls school, as I mentioned, where 90% of the teachers were female, and really it was a great environment where women were seen as competitive, as intelligent, as being creatives, where women were heard, their ideas were celebrated, and their victories were revered, where deportment was expressed as fluidity between being a fierce goal scorer, on the sports field, and also being a savvy wordsmith, but also with the fluidity of still holding that feminine part of yourself. I mean, not everybody wants to express themselves in that way, but the moment that you're seen as a leader, or the moment that you're seen as strong, sometimes there's the question of, do you then renounce that femininity? And for me, that answer is no. I do embrace the hard physical nature of my work, because that's what I was drawn to. That's what I love. That's what makes me feel excited. But it also means that I don't have to renounce the feminine aspects, the softness, the creativity, the girly giggles sometimes when I'm, feeling like a woman. So there is definitely a balance, but in that expression, sometimes we can find that by being feminine, there is this mixed perception or misconception that one is soft or weak, and I actually don't like that idea, because it's not true. We have women who are as feminine as they can be, who will dominate the boardrooms, who will fly that jet, who will fly that Boeing 737 or 747. And excel. So it's a core feeling, it's a core thing that women have to bring to our spaces. So what I'm trying to say is that I see no difference in what I have to bring and what any other female has to bring to the table. And it's really like the time that I would just follow my father onto the soccer pitch and want to play. Myself, I was seeing a soccer player, or anytime I walk into a space, I see a pilot. And for us, we cannot always control what men see when we come into the space. Sometimes they will see a challenge for the objects of their affection, which is really unnecessary, because in our spaces, we want to feel safe. We have a crisis now where in this country, we have large numbers and reported cases of femicide, gender-based violence, sexual harassment. And really, it's happening to every person, not every person, people from various backgrounds that you wouldn't expect. We really take it for granted that it's a commonly understood thing or theme, that when a person is a professional in uniform, that is what you see first and foremost. But unfortunately, you're still having to grapple with, unwanted attention from areas where you feel that you have come to work, areas where you feel like, you've come to express that skill that you would like to share. And it can really be debilitating. I think as women, the more we shine the light to this unfortunate situations that may arise and assisting each other in how to overcome them, we can then slowly but surely start to eradicate them. And also not to subscribe to wanting to conform because you're the only one at the expense of your self-dignity. I think there are times when people have been victims of these, and they have renounced, and they felt that in order to fit in, this is what I must sacrifice as a woman in order for me to get to the top. This is not the way it works. It not works in the military, it does not work in boardrooms, in corporates, wherever it may be. It's not a sickness that women should condone, and if it's seen, it's actually our responsibility to speak up against it, to be an advocate for change, to be an advocate for strong, intelligent, well-spoken women out there who will help to open up the platforms for others so that we can all succeed. So how do we navigate this? How do we navigate the mindset where people are deeply rooted in outdated philosophies and perceptions around women? I think that the short answer to it would be that in order to facilitate change, we have to become the change that we want to see. But also, we don't want to waste time and energy trying to eradicate outdated mindsets that have absolutely nothing to do with you. I think that our energy can be much better used to grow and to expand our skills. We can invest that energy of trying to show somebody how amazing you are, to show the light, rather by doing it and being it, by investing. Then invest in the skills that allow you to be a great speaker. If you want to be a strong leader, invest in those skills rather than going around trying to show everybody that their perception of you is false. If it is false, then unfortunately, time will come where you will have the opportunity to show your authenticity. Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is that we don't need to meddle in the mindsets of people that are not here to see a woman rise. Rather, spend your time with people who do see what you have to offer, who do understand the way that things work in your environment or in your mind, and then team up with people who share this same vision for success, who share the same vision of seeing more female pilots, or seeing more women in the boardroom, or seeing more sports players, cricket players in traditionally male roles, because then it cements that which resonates with you. There's a frequency or an idea that we hold, it will shine even stronger, and then we start to attract more situations where we will see women thriving in these spaces. So the way that we can do that is perhaps something as small as delivering a project on time, meeting a deadline, creatively and innovatively solving a problem that they didn't realize that you would have the solution to. I mean, when you show up in your brilliance, that energy is really hard to ignore. Even if you're just sitting in a room, when you are in your truth, in your authenticity, you are felt. You are felt, and sometimes it makes people who are not for you uncomfortable, but then sometimes it makes somebody who is like you and maybe not brave enough to show that part to be brave enough and show that part. So showing up in your brilliance is basically the spark that is needed in a dark room. I think the beauty of light is that unlike darkness, darkness overwhelms, darkness likes to create shadows and dominates. But when one has a spark or a light, that little spark can reach into the crevices of everything. Even if it just illuminates for a moment, that illumination makes a difference. When a spark was there, you will feel it and you will see it. And that's what we need to become in our spaces. We need to be that spark, that light, and bring that energy that is sometimes new and often really desired. For me, I treasure the time that I spent in high school. I was surrounded by women who were motivated, by teachers who were inspiring, because when I lean back and I don't always see that type of woman, it's the first thing that appears in the foreground of my mind. And that gives me courage to keep going. That's what helps to cement and be resilient. I think the representation of women in sports, for instance, it's something so big, because they are being experts and they're winning and dominating in their field, that you can take it into any environment that you're working in. Even if it's just any environment. It can be chemistry, it can be medicine, whatever it is that you will remember that woman went out there and she achieved that goal. Today, all I'm going to do is to accomplish this task that I have set for myself and be a winner in my field. So that is definitely one way that we can navigate spaces that don't seem like they were traditionally made for us. And I say seem because I feel that if there was more representation in those spaces before, if women weren't barred away from participating in events as we were before, it would make a huge difference. So, the strongest or the closing that I would like to say is that surround yourself with strong team players, learn from them, encourage each other, and align in a shared vision, because when you're in a team, your voice is stronger and you're safeguarded against anomalies that threaten your success. Flying past gender discrimination in the workplace does not mean ignoring the problems that exist, but the skillful application of discernment of what matters most in a time and place. Your energy and time is a precious commodity that you possess, so use it to elevate yourself so that you can truly shine. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Major Mfeka. We are truly delighted to have you in our platform, and you are a true role model to our children out there. And when we give examples, when we motivate them about you, because they're able to see you, unlike taking a picture of somebody that they cannot relate with. So we truly appreciate your time, and also highlighting that you are in a male-dominated environment, but here you are, you stood out, and you are showing us that if you believe in yourself, that's what you highlighted, self-belief. It will take you just about everywhere you want to go. Thank you so much, and we will take our next speaker right now, and we'll take questions later after our next speaker. So please be with us in the platform unless you have to rush somewhere.
My cutoff is 12 o'clock, so.
That's 12 o'clock. Oh, okay. All right.
Yes.
All right. In the meantime, you can also check some of the questions that are directed to you on the chat, that you can just answer them quickly in case you might have to leave the platform before we take questions and answers. Thank you. I'm going to introduce Dr. Athamile Masola. Is a writer, researcher, and lecturer at the University of Cape Town's Historical Studies Department. She has a PhD from Rhodes University. Her research focuses on Black women's historiography, intellectual histories, and life writing. Her writing has been published in a variety of publications, such as Imbiza, Profrock, Subtle Literacy Magazine, Al Jazeera, Mail and Guardian, Salbona, The Guardian, online blogs, and academic journals. Her first collection of poems written in isiXhosa titled Ilifa, Uhlanga Press, in her first book. I'm gonna hand over to you, Dr. Masola. Are you here?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you to the speakers who've already spoken and set a really good foundation for this event. And thank you to the organizers and the School of Governance for extending an invitation. So unlike the previous speakers, perhaps with the exception of maybe Major Mfeka, my career has been quite short in the sense that I started off as a high school teacher for 5 years and shifted into academia a few years ago and started working at the University of Pretoria, and only just as of this month actually started at the University of Cape Town. So I would say I'm still trying to find my feet insofar as understanding higher education. And so what I'm going to do is just focus on the role of my work in relation to some of the broader questions about what it means to be a woman and how to deal with discrimination and how to think about gender discrimination. And so the work that I do is that I'm a literary and I'm a literary historian. So that means I read the world. I think of myself as reading the world in all its complexities, but more importantly, I read the world in relation to the past. So I'm constantly going back to history to make sense of where we are right now. And the way in which I do that is that I look at historical texts as well as literary texts. And what I do is that I use feminism to read the world. And by feminism, I mean, I look at the role in which, the ways in which women are presented in the world. And I look at the ways in which we, writers and historians have tried to make sense about the role of women in the world. And so I'm constantly thinking about people like Charlotte Maxeke, Nontsizi Mgqwetho, Mina Soga, Emma Sandile, many women who I write about in order to make sense of the present. So for me, without an understanding of history, we cannot recreate the future. So, and in one sense, then it's a question of, well, what does the public service have to do with history? Why would public servants have to know about history? And more often than not, for me, it's bigger than that. Is what is the question of citizenship in relation to our history? And our history as South Africa, which is a very young country, but also in relation to a continent like Africa, which has been so misunderstood and has been so ravaged by the consequences of that misunderstanding. So more importantly, I also look at histories that are not represented in the big monuments. So if you think about, I imagine many people in the room are probably in Pretoria. So if you look at the ways in which the union buildings are even designed, for example, you have the lawns and you have the monument of the man on the horse, and then you walk up towards the steps, and then you have war memorials, the names of people who fought in World War I and World War II, and then you walk up some more, and then you have the giant statue of former President Nelson Mandela. So in spite of the fact that we had 1956, I don't know, and perhaps I'd have to go for another visit to the union buildings to really search for the meaningful ways in which even something like the 1956 Women's March has been commemorated right there at the union buildings. Because one would think that an innovative memorial would be having all the names of the women, or as many of the women, or something that represents the over 20,000, not even 2,000, 20,000, some people say even as much as 30,000 women who gathered there in 1956. So I think a lot about the ways in which histories that are not made into monuments are often forgotten. And perhaps for much of South Africa's histories, it's the histories of forgotten people that actually make up this country. So when I was at the union buildings earlier this month, I was quite struck by the tents that people have pitched there, excuse me, because of the question of land and the question of what it means to be in this country. And why would people go and pitch tents and start living there in a country where we have a constitution that says all these wonderful things about how people ought to live. That's a historical question as much as it is a contemporary question. So that is what my job is to think about history in relation to the present. And so if then history is important in our present, and it's not just something that is in our history textbooks, what does it mean for a gathering like this? And I know it was mentioned earlier that this year is the year of the 150 years of Mam Charlotte Maxeke. So I'm not going to talk too much about her in that sense, because I'm hoping by now, the celebration started in April. So I'm hoping by now it's August. We've all heard about who this wonderful woman is. But just to say a bit about her is that for me, she epitomizes the original public servant in a sense that she began her work before Black women were even given the space in the state. So if we think that, if we want to say that South Africa as a nation was born with the Union of South Africa in 1910, by then Mama Maxeke has been already kind of politicized by the Anglo-Boer War. She's already returned from Wilberforce University where she studied and came back to South Africa as the first Black woman, and actually woman, to have a degree abroad. And so by the time a country is born, and I'm going to put that in inverted commas because there's also 1994, there's also 1948. So the kind of Union of South Africa in 1910, Mama Maxeke is already understanding that without the role of women, without the importance of women being involved with the state, women challenging the state, then nothing will happen. So for example, and this happens in the form of her involvement in the past laws and the past protests in Vryhoek, where people say it's in Bloemfontein, but Vryhoek is actually just outside Bloemfontein. She's already done this by establishing schools where in Everton. She does this by establishing the Bantu Women's League in 1918, which is largely in response to the fact that women were not part of the SANNC in 1912. And so women were organizing in other ways because the kind of broader umbrella of the SANNC didn't allow women to be members until 1943. But that doesn't stop her from getting involved, is that she continues not only working within the Bantu Women's League, but also collaborating with women across class, across education, across language barriers, across all the kind of barriers that we sometimes imagine exist today, making people collaborate. And by the time she passes away in 1939, she's also been involved as a probation officer. But underneath all of that, people often forget is that some of her politicization comes from the fact that she had been part of a choir in her formative years and in her young adulthood years, which is part of the reason that she ends up studying abroad in the first place. She was part of the African choir, which toured in England and in the USA in 1891. And if you imagine what a choir represents, is that it's a group of people who have to put their voices together in order to create a harmony, in order to create a song, in order to create something beautiful. And so that symbol, but in very real ways, material experience of collaborating in order for all of us to build something together is very much at the core of someone like Mama Maxeke's life, and that she wasn't doing that work alone. So even in that choir, there were people like Eleanor Qiniwe, who was a businesswoman in King Williamstown. Her sister, Katie Makanya, was also part of that choir. So there were all these women and there were all these men who were involved. And one of the people who started the choir was her teacher, Paul Qiniwe, who is influential in her even just realizing her talents, but also realizing her talents in relation to a political context that says that Black people should be slaves, that says that Black women are at the bottom of the food chain, and that they've got nothing valuable to offer the world. And And so even while someone like Mama Xeke, who we've been celebrating throughout this year, she too sometimes falls into the traps of being, what's the word that I'm looking for, of being misused and even erased. So even for a very long time, people didn't know about the significance of Mama Xeke because she was, I mean, the memorial that was given to her was the Charlotte Maxeke Hospital, for example. Now, it seems ironic to me that someone who has such an expansive life across the country, because her adult life was not only in Johannesburg, but it was also in other parts of the country, is that the major monument that we have is the hospital in Johannesburg, as though she was a nurse, in a sense. You kind of name buildings after what people were or what their careers were about. But it was only until recently when people like Charlotte Lobe, for example, put together programs that honor her legacy as a diplomat one way or another, in that she broke boundaries and was a transnational figure. So even while she went and sang in England and studied in the USA and sang there as well, even across the continent, she made a footprint because part of her role was also establishing the AME Church in South Africa. But it didn't stop there, is that she would take trips to what we now call Zimbabwe, Botswana. And so her life was multifaceted. So what does it mean to honor the life of someone who is multifaceted? What does it mean to not have a university that is named after someone like Charlotte Maxeke, even in spite of her significance as the first Black woman to get a degree abroad? It seems ironic to me that there would be a university named after someone like Sol Plaatje, who was her peer, right enough, and has done a lot of work in terms of the historical and the literary space and the literary history in South Africa, but will have a university named after him, but not her peer or someone as significant as Mama Xeke. We will have main streets named after many of the men in the struggle, but people like Mama Xeke have very obscure streets. And by obscure streets, I mean small streets. It's a wonder, and it's important, I think, to have material remembrances and commemorate people through our infrastructure. So for example, the fact that from the airport, you drive on Albertina Sisulu highway, for example, is significant. So what does it mean when someone like Charlotte Maxeke has small streets dedicated to her? What does it mean when we have residences, perhaps on some university campuses dedicated to her, but she is still kind of in the background in a sense? So it's important, I think, when we think about public service, is to also think of it within a historical context. And when we think about that historical context, is to do it in a way that it constantly and always honors women. Often when I do presentations, I read a poem by Makhosazana Xaba called Tongues of Their Mothers. And what she does in that poem, I won't read it now because of time, but what she does in that poem is that she writes about all these women, about 20 women who are often left out of history. And so I think the burden of the public service is to think about how do we build a better future, of course, but how do we build a better future with a real understanding and with a real solid understanding of our history, so that we don't repeat those mistakes, so that we don't leave anybody out in the future, and so that we don't minimize the role that people have played, particularly women have played in the role of that history, so that women can form a firm part of that future. So yeah, I guess that's how I'm thinking about gender discrimination in very broad ways, is that you can't do it without thinking about the future, and that the future isn't something that's sitting in the past. It's not stories that are sitting in the past, but history is about how we build better schools, how we build better hospitals, how we build safer communities, how we build innovative and important technology that will help us solve the problems that we're currently dealing with. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Dr. Masola, for actually reminding us that we shouldn't forget about our history. We should give recognition to our leaders and also make sure that they are never forgotten and portray them in the right way that they've contributed to our country. We really appreciate you as a researcher, because most people, they tend out to forget about history, or they don't, portray it the way it should be. So we are looking forward to, seeing more of your work in the near future, and getting to advise our youngsters as well, to follow some of these careers, because it helps to nurture our history, and going forward, make sure that we don't repeat some of the mistakes that were encountered. Without wasting more time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. And we are running out of time, and also recognizing that we are using data right now. We are no longer, having that luxury of sitting in a room and just talking. So we don't want to end up having one or two people in the platform. So I'm just quickly going to ask Ms. Angela Montana to give us a way forward to close the session. Thank you. Over to you, Ms. Angela.
Afternoon, everyone who's in attendance of the session. And I need to say, before I even go to acknowledge everybody who has been in attendance, this has been one of the most inspiring sessions that we've had during the month of August. All the women that have been invited to speak show that they are indeed flying past gender discrimination in the different careers that they have. Ms. Chakut, your passion, your determination, you're indicating that adversity equals opportunity, and that as women, we have the power, has been inspiring. Me Mokaba, you showed us that when you are not happy with your career, it is okay to leave. And as long as wherever you are determined and you are passionate, you need to push, because anything that you want is possible. Major Mandisa Mfeka, young as you are, and in as much as you say it was serendipity and happenstance, perhaps it was more of destiny that you needed to see what you saw that inspired you to become a pilot. You are truly an inspiration to all the young people that would like to be where you are and perhaps even beyond. Dr. Atambile Masola, history indeed is one aspect that we cannot ignore, and we need to keep elevating the work that has been put in by the women who are trailblazers in the different spheres of their lives. As the public service, we have developed different policies that are intended to grow us as a nation, policies that have been developed to empower and emancipate women so that they grow in their different careers. There has been a lot of work that has been done in the past. We acknowledge the work that has been done by the different departments, the Department of Women, the Department of Public Service and Administration. The list is endless. We keep having platforms and dialogues that encourage us as women to have conversations on how we can continually empower other women and not stop at where we are. In these platforms, it is important that we also start involving men so that they understand that they also have a role to play in the advancement of women within the different spheres. Right now, we are dealing with COVID-19 that has also created a pandemic on its own that exacerbates issues such as poverty and gender-based violence. I cannot express enough the challenges that women are facing when it comes to gender-based violence and femicide. It is our responsibility in every aspect of our life, in every industry where we are, to continue protecting the rights of women, children, and persons with disability when it comes to gender-based violence and the effects of COVID-19. With that said, what do we do now moving forward? We need to create a conducive environment for girls, as well as boys for that matter, to be able to express themselves when it comes to their future plans. Let us not downplay the dreams that they have. Let us allow them to dream big and create a world that might seem impossible to achieve. But we show them the clips from the likes of Major Mfeka, the likes of Ms. Jakut, and say to them, these are the people that had dreams that nobody thought were possible to achieve. They have achieved them and even exceeded expectation. Let us be the role players when it comes to mentoring. When we want these young women to grow, we need to hold one by the hand. It is a quotation that Charlotte Matleke has said before, that if you are not going to move with somebody, then what you are doing is not making much of an impact. In your individual spaces, find one young person and say, you are going to become my responsibility. I will help grow you to where you need to be. Let us nurture the passion that young people have. Let us create safe spaces and be supportive to the women in different spaces so that they are able to share their experiences of abuse, of harassment. We know that it happens whether in homes, whether in workplaces. Let us promote that dialogue. Let us be the support that they need to move forward. And for us to do that, we need to also create economic empowerment for these women so that they're able to push forward and be able to remove themselves from the toxic environments that they find themselves in. Let us encourage each other and be each other's cheerleaders. It is said many times that women have what we call PhD. That is a thing of the past, because now we are committing as women to say we're going to move and promote each other to excel in every sphere of our life. Mandisa said, your authenticity, your femininity, your brains, your skills, that indeed is your superpower. And we should not downplay it. Let us not be modest about what we are capable of as women. We need to acknowledge equally the role that women play and continue to play within the country. With that said, I would like to again thank the speakers that we have invited. The work that you do, please continue shining. Through your foundation, Ms. Jakut, please continue growing the young pilots that want to also be where you are and even excel in the go beyond what you have achieved. Memokava, we acknowledge you, the work that you have done and continue to do. Your passion cannot be downplayed. Major Mfeka, indeed, we are superheroes in our different spheres, and we thank you for continuously motivating young people. Dr. Masola, we have had you, and we believe that the powers that be have had you, and women will continue being acknowledged and uplifted. In all that you do, we thank you. Dr. Izimalaji, you welcomed us warmly into this webinar, and we continue to acknowledge the role that we play as the chairperson of the gender committee within the organization. The work that you and other members of GenMec do does not go unrecognized. Ms. Nolo Maila, you're a young person who has grown within the organization, within the NSG. During the many years that we have been with you, you have shown a lot of growth. And we thank you and we acknowledge what you have done today with directing this program excellently. To everybody who has been involved in organizing this webinar, we thank you for the work that we have done. And I need to also acknowledge our Deputy Minister, Chikunga, for being in attendance of this webinar. We thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us. We also acknowledge Ms. Vuyisa Tulelo, who is the High Commissioner to the New Zealand. Thank you, ma'am, for taking the time to be part of this webinar. Principal Busani Ngaweni, your leadership continues to inspire us to do more for the women of this organization, the women in the public service, and the women in the country generally. Thank you, and continue being the support structure that we need. We are hoping that through your leadership, you will also engage the men, not only within the organization, but also elsewhere, to be a part of the movement that is going to create equality for men and women within this country. I thank you all and have a blessed day further. Thank you. The program director is encountering some challenges, but that is okay because her work has basically been done. She has been acknowledged and we thank her for it. Perhaps it's even an opportunity for me to acknowledge everybody who has been in attendance of the session. All the participants, your engagements, your questions, your comments are appreciated. And please feel free to engage with the National School of Government going forward with the programs that we do offer and the webinars and master classes that we host. Thank you very much. And with that, I thank you. Bye-bye.